I still remember the exact moment everything changed. Christmas lights glowed softly across the living room, the fireplace crackled with that warm, lazy sound, and my heart felt strangely hopeful. For the first time in years, I thought this Christmas might actually be peaceful. I didn't know that within hours, my in-laws would mock my dad right in front of me, and that same harmless insult would trigger a truth that would shake all of them. If I'm honest, a part of me still hears their laughter, and I still see the way my dad looked at me. Not angry, not hurt, just quietly disappointed. That was the moment my whole world shifted. But maybe I should start from the beginning.
I always thought Christmas would bring families together. Turns out, it can also pull people apart. "Are you sure about bringing your dad?" my husband Michael whispered as we stood on his parents' porch. "Yes," I said firmly. "It's Christmas. Of course he should be here." He didn't argue, but the look on his face said enough. That look always made me uneasy. We knocked. The door opened, and there they were, my in-laws. Gloria, my mother-in-law, wearing a red dress that sparkled like she was hosting a TV special. Richard, my father-in-law, tall, stiff, polished, and Michael's sister, Tara, already holding a glass of wine. Gloria's smile dropped the second she saw my dad standing behind us, holding a small box wrapped in cheap paper. "Oh," she said, "you brought him?" Dad smiled kindly. "Merry Christmas, everyone." Gloria didn't even step aside fully. She just turned and walked back inside. I clenched my jaw. Dad whispered, "It's fine, sweetheart. I'm used to people like her." But I wasn't. Inside the house, the living room was warm and bright. A huge Christmas tree covered in gold ornaments stood in the corner. The house smelled like cinnamon and money. Dad set his small box under the tree. Tara eyed it immediately. "Cute wrapping paper," she said, tilting her head. "Did you gift it yourself?" Dad chuckled. "I like simple things." Richard cleared his throat. "Some people do." The jab hit harder than they thought. Michael pulled me aside. "Please don't start anything tonight." "I'm not," I whispered back, "but they better not either." Dinner was served in a dining room that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Dad sat quietly at the end of the table. Gloria smiled sweetly at everyone except him. "So, how is your little repair shop doing?" Dad wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Oh, I don't run it anymore." Tara raised a brow. "Oh? It finally closed?" Dad nodded. "Yes, years ago." Gloria smirked and whispered loudly to Richard, "Explains the clothes." I slammed my fork down. "Mom!" "Don't!" Dad whispered to me. But Richard wasn't done. "So, what do you do now? Retirement? Odd jobs?" Dad took a slow sip of water. "I invest." Tara snorted. "Invest? Like scratch-off tickets?" Everyone laughed. Except Michael. Except me. Except Dad. He just smiled. That quiet smile he always had when he knew something no one else did.
"So," Gloria continued, "since you're between things, do you need any help paying your bills?" Dad looked up slowly. "No, I'm all right. Thank you." "Are you sure?" she pressed. "We don't want our daughter supporting you forever." Michael coughed loudly. "Mom!" But she ignored him. Richard added, "No shame in accepting help. Some people aren't built for success." The table went silent. Dad set down his fork calmly. Then he looked directly at them. You know, people often hide behind money, because without it, they're afraid they'll have nothing left. Gloria blinked. Excuse me? Dad didn't raise his voice. He simply said, People judge me because of how I dress, because I don't show off, but wealth doesn't always look the way you expect. Richard laughed, actually laughed. Oh, come on. Wealth? You? Tara giggled. I mean, look at your watch. It's practically antique. Dad glanced at it. It's been with me a long time. Clearly, she said. I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation and anger. I opened my mouth, but Dad gently touched my arm. Eat, he whispered. Let them talk. But the talking was only getting worse. After dinner, we gathered near the tree. Gloria handed out beautifully wrapped presents, designer bags, expensive perfumes, custom gadgets. Then she picked up Dad's small box between her manicured fingers like it might stain her. This is from you? She asked. Dad nodded. Just something small. She forced a smile. I'm sure. She opened it. Inside was a delicate wooden ornament, hand-carved, a snowflake with tiny detailed edges. Gloria blinked. Oh! Tara whispered to her husband. It looks like something from a dollar store. Richard chuckled under his breath. Dad heard. I saw it in his eyes. He stayed polite. He said, I made it when I had free time. Ah, she said dramatically. You made it. Cute. Dad nodded, still calm. I wanted to give something personal. Gloria placed the ornament at the very back of the tree, almost hiding it. But the moment wasn't over, because Tara suddenly said, Hey, why don't you tell us the truth, Mr. Humble? You're struggling, right? No shame in it. Dad breathed in slowly. Then he stood, and in his soft, steady voice, he said, I think it's time you hear the truth. Everyone turned. Gloria frowned. Richard crossed his arms. Dad looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. And then he said something that even the Christmas lights seemed to freeze.
Dad stood in the center of the living room. The room's warm glow suddenly felt colder. Everyone stared at him, waiting. Gloria crossed her arms. Well, we're listening. Dad nodded slowly, as if preparing himself. I've never told anyone the full story, he said. Not because I'm hiding something, but because I don't like bragging. Richard scoffed. Trust me, we can tell. That ignored him. I stopped running my repair shop 8 years ago. That much is true. But it didn't fail. I sold it. Tara blinked. Sold it? For what? A few $1,000s? Dad shook his head gently. For 7 figures. The room fell silent. 7 figures? Michael whispered. Tara laughed nervously. No way. Not possible. You lived in a tiny house. Dad smiled, and I still do. A small house doesn't mean a small life. Richard narrowed his eyes. So you expect us to believe you're rich? Dad shrugged. Believe what you want. I'm not here for your approval. Gloria sat up straighter. If you're so wealthy, why bring a cheap ornament? Why not something nice? Dad exhaled. Not angry, just disappointed. Because gifts aren't made valuable by their price. They're valuable when they're given with heart. He looked at the ornament, hidden behind the tree branches. I carved that snowflake during the hardest winter of my life. Before I sold my business, before the investments took off. It represents hope. Tara blinked, suddenly quiet. And I gave it to you, Dad said, softly. because I wanted to share something meaningful. Gloria swallowed hard. It was the first time all night she looked unsure.
Michael speaks up. Then, out of nowhere, Michael stepped forward. "Dad, Mom, can you just stop?" he said. "This is embarrassing. You judged him from the minute he walked in." Gloria gasped. "Excuse me? Are you taking his side?" "I'm taking the side of basic decency," Richard muttered. "Don't talk to your mother like that." "No," Michael said louder. "Enough! You both were cruel for no reason." His voice cracked slightly. This was years of frustration coming out. My heart softened a little. Michael had never stood up to them like this. Ever. But then, the twist. Gloria suddenly narrowed her eyes and looked straight at me. "Oh, I get it now," she said slowly. "This was all planned." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" She pointed at Dad. "His little speech, the portfolio, the dramatic story." "Mom, no," she snapped. "You all want us to feel bad. You think we'll beg for forgiveness because he waved numbers around?" Dad sighed. "This isn't about numbers." Gloria ignored him and continued. "You're manipulating us, trying to embarrass us in our own home on Christmas." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Gloria, stop," I said firmly. "Dad came here to celebrate with us, not to fight." But she wasn't listening. She took a step closer. "I've known people like him. Quiet, secretive, pretending to be humble while they judge everyone." Dad gave a tired smile. "I haven't judged you once." "Oh, yes, you have," she snapped. "You think you're better than us." Dad folded his hands. "No," he said calmly, "but I think I deserve respect." Richard's face hardened. "We don't owe you anything." Dad nodded slowly. "Good, then I won't expect anything from you ever again." I felt my stomach drop. "Dad, wait!" But he shook his head. "I came here to be part of the family, but I won't stay where I'm unwanted." He turned toward the door, and that's when Gloria said the one sentence that changed everything that night. The sentence that broke the last bit of peace left. "Fine, leave. Maybe you should go back to whatever tiny place you came from." Gloria gasped. Tara looked shocked. Even Richard flinched. Dad stopped. He didn't turn around. He spoke softly. "So that's how you truly see me." And he faced the door until a voice stopped him. A voice none of us expected.
Dad stood frozen near the door, coat half on, ready to leave. The room held its breath. Then, "Grandpa, don't go." Everyone turned. It was Ethan, Michael's 8-year-old nephew, the quiet kid who barely spoke the whole night. He stepped forward, holding something in his small hands. Dad blinked. "Grandpa?" Ethan nodded shyly. "You're the only one who talked to me tonight." Gloria's face tightened. "Ethan, sweetie, why don't you go play?" But he ignored her and walked straight to my dad. "You told me my drawing was good. Nobody else looked at it." Dad knelt down. "It was good. You have talent." Ethan held out the drawing, a little pencil sketch of the Christmas tree. "I want you to have it," he whispered. Dad's eyes softened. "I'd be honored." The whole room shifted. The innocence of a child had done what the adults refused to do. Recognized Dad's kindness. Gloria stepped forward sharply. Ethan, that's enough. Give that to your father instead. Ethan shook his head. No, I want Grandpa to have it. She inhaled sharply. Ethan, you don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do, Ethan yelled suddenly. He's nicer than all of you. Dead silence. Richard stood. Watch your tone, young man. Ethan glared. An 8-year-old glare, but powerful nonetheless. Why? You were mean first. Gloria gasped, as if struck. Then he turned to Dad again. You're not poor. You're just normal. And I like normal. Dad chuckled softly. That's the best compliment someone can give. Gloria suddenly snapped. This is ridiculous. First he humiliates us, now he's influencing the children. Dad shook his head. I didn't influence anyone. I barely said 10 sentences tonight. Michael sighed. Mom, please, stop making this worse. But she didn't stop. She pointed at Dad, her voice rising. You came here to show off, to make us look small. Dad's voice remained calm. I never mentioned money until you mocked me. Richard crossed his arms. You still should have been honest. Dad raised a brow. Honest about what? My bank account? Richard hesitated. Dad continued gently. People don't announce their finances like a circus show. Only insecure people do that. Gloria stiffened. I am not insecure. Dad glanced around at the mansion decorated like a magazine spread. No, you're afraid of people who don't play your game.
Gloria took a step toward him, jabbing a finger. You think you're better than us because you have money. But we built this life through hard work, not luck. Dad smiled, a sad, understanding smile. I worked hard too. You just didn't bother asking. Richard suddenly stepped in, raising his voice for the first time. Then why hide it? Why pretend you're some nobody? Dad's tone sharpened, just slightly. Because I wanted to see who you were. Not how you behaved around someone rich, but how you behaved around someone you thought was beneath you. Everyone froze. Even Gloria didn't have a comeback. Michael stepped forward, voice shaking. You've been unfair to him since the day you met him. Gloria spun. Michael, not you too! He shook his head. He's right, Mom. You judge people instantly. You think money equals value. Richard snapped. We raised you better than to disrespect us. Michael swallowed hard. No, you raised me to fear you, to keep quiet. But tonight, I'm done with that. My heart thumped. This was the first time I'd seen Michael stand against his parents like this. He turned to Dad. And I'm sorry, he said sincerely. You deserved better. Dad nodded gently. Thank you, son. Gloria's eyes widened. Son? Son? You call him son now? Dad shrugged lightly. Well, he's been more of a son to me tonight than anyone else. Gloria's face went from shock to pure anger. That's it, she said harshly. I want him out. Michael stepped in front of her. No. Excuse me, she snapped. No, Michael repeated louder. He leaves, we leave. Richard stared. You're threatening us on Christmas? Michael looked around the room. No, I'm choosing peace. And peace means protecting my wife and her father. I felt tears prick my eyes. But then, Gloria delivered the line that lit the fuse. If he's so rich, he doesn't need you anyway. Dad finally looked tired. Not angry, not sad, just tired. He reached for the doorknob, but something unexpected stopped him again. Not a child this time. not Michael. Tara.
Wait, she said softly. Everyone turned. Tara wrung her hands nervously. Her voice cracked. Dad, Mom, can you just stop yelling? Her voice shook. This isn't right. Gloria frowned. Tara, stay out of this. No, she whispered. I'm tired. She walked toward Dad. Mr. Anderson, I'm sorry, she said quietly. I really am. Dad nodded gently. Thank you, Tara. She looked at Gloria, then Richard. You two were awful tonight, and I'm not covering for you this time. Gloria sputtered. Tara, you don't understand. No, I do understand. He didn't do anything, and you bullied him. The room froze. Richard's voice cracked. Tara, you're embarrassing the family. She stared at them both with years of frustration built up in her eyes. Maybe the family deserves to be embarrassed. Dad turns back. Dad let go of the doorknob and turned around slowly. Thank you, Tara, he said. That means something. Tara nodded with watery eyes. Gloria clenched her fists. So now my children are against me. Perfect. Merry Christmas to me. Dad shook his head gently. No one is against you. They're just tired of living under your judgment. Gloria went silent. Dad stepped forward. I didn't come here to start a war. I came here because my daughter wanted her families together. I felt my chest tighten. He continued, and I'll stay, but only if the disrespect ends tonight. Richard looked like he wanted to argue, but before he could, Gloria did something none of us expected. She slowly, quietly, sat down. Her voice was barely a whisper. Fine. Richard stared at her. Gloria. She shook her head. No, Richard, not tonight. I'm done yelling. And for the first time ever, she looked tired, defeated, human. Dad nodded. Then let's try again. And just when it seemed the night might finally settle, a new problem appeared in the doorway. Someone none of us were expecting. Someone who would twist the whole night upside down again.
The door creaked open slowly. We all froze. Standing there was Gloria's brother, a stern-looking man in his 50s, with a sharp gaze that could cut through steel. I heard the commotion, he said coolly. What's going on here? Gloria froze mid-breath. Richard muttered something under his breath. Tara shrank slightly behind Dad. Dad stepped forward calmly. We're just trying to enjoy Christmas. Gloria's brother raised an eyebrow. You call this enjoying? You humiliated the family. Your father, your wealth, your showboating? Dad held up his hand. I haven't humiliated anyone. I've simply spoken the truth. He glanced at me. It seems my presence is a problem for some. Gloria's brother sneered. A problem? You came here to play a game, to prove something. Dad shook his head. No, I came here for my daughter. I came here for kindness, and I found resistance. Dad took a step closer, steady, calm, yet firm. You judged me because of appearances. You whispered that I was poor. You laughed at my gifts. You treated me like I had nothing. He paused. Every eye in the room was locked on him now. Yet here I stand. I have worked quietly for decades. I invested wisely. I am wealthy, yes, but I am also humble.
because money never made me better, but arrogance almost destroyed all of you tonight." Gloria's brother took a step back, visibly shaken. Gloria's face went pale. Richard finally spoke, voice shaking. You tricked us?" Dad raised a brow. "I didn't trick anyone. You tricked yourselves by judging before knowing." Tara finally spoke, voice trembling. Everyone judged too quickly. Even me. I'm sorry." Gloria whispered, almost to herself, I didn't realize." Dad turned to her gently. "It's never too late to realize, but realization is useless without change." Michael finally stepped forward. "Mom, Dad, enough. It's Christmas. Can we please just be better?" Gloria opened her mouth, then closed it. Richard didn't respond. The room was silent. The children bring perspective. Ethan, clutching his little snowflake ornament, spoke. "I like Grandpa because he's kind and he makes me feel important." Tara's younger cousin added, "I like him too." Even Michael smiled softly. Dad knelt down and nodded. He said thank you, simply. Sometimes small voices reveal more than anger and arrogance ever could. Gloria's eyes filled with tears. I was wrong, she whispered. Richard gritted his teeth, then exhaled slowly. "Yeah, we misjudged you." Dad smiled faintly. "That's all I needed. Recognition of truth, not applause." Tara stepped forward. "And I promise I will never judge someone by money again." Michael held my hand. I glanced at Dad, pride swelling in my chest. Resolution. Christmas reclaimed. We returned to the tree. Dad carefully placed his carved snowflake ornament in the center where everyone could see it. He smiled. Christmas isn't about gifts or money. It's about respect, kindness, and being seen for who you really are. Gloria finally smiled, softly this time. Richard nodded. Even the kids beamed. Michael whispered to me, This is finally what Christmas should feel like." I nodded, eyes misty. Dad leaned down to me. "You see, sometimes humility is the strongest power you can have, moral or reflection." That night taught us all a lesson. Respect isn't earned through wealth. True character reveals itself in small actions. Judging others before knowing their story only leads to shame. And for me, I realized that even in a family full of pride and arrogance, truth and kindness can triumph, if you have the courage to speak it. As I watched Dad smile by the tree, I knew one thing for sure. This Christmas, he had given everyone the most valuable gift of all. A lesson in humility, respect, and the quiet strength of a truly good man.